So, hello, and a very, very warm welcome to this, which must be now the third in our series on the Mahayana Uttara Tantra Shastra, also known as the Dharmacharya Vibhaga, or usually we call it Buddha Nature Teachings, but actually I was thinking this morning about the title, Ratnagotra Vibhanga. Vibhanga just means it's a treatise. So Ratnagotra is like it means what is essentially precious. So precious is actually Ratna, which is short for the three refuges, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So it's like the quintessential refuges is like the title, quintessential. But then if you keep it as precious, what is quintessentially the most precious? That's a really nice title. And it's a wonderful thing that we can be studying it. It is the cherry on the cake of our Bodhisattva teachings. It's Christmas, we're getting near to cake time. And so this is like the best of the best, the quintessential of the most precious. Wonderful. And so as it's part of our Bodhisattva journey, we need to approach it with the purest, most joyful, most loving, caring, compassionate, inspired, devoted mind we can find. Positive. Kind of. Happy and caring for everybody and longing to learn wonderful things. So let's perk ourselves up, wake ourselves up. I remember somebody telling me about one of Donald Creedon's meditation sessions. And meditation's a great opportunity to sleep. Shrine rooms are wonderful dormitories. And so sometimes when you've got a session, then especially you see when you're at the front, you see everybody. When you're in the audience, you just see the back of people's heads. But when you're the teacher, you see everybody kind of nodding off in the meditation sessions. So apparently at one point he really banged the gong really hard. And he said, Buddha means woken up. Everybody's kind of like this. He said, we're supposed to be meditating to wake up. Anyway, good. Some of you are smiling. That's wonderful. Happy bodhisattvas. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through our practice of generosity and all six transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening with every enlightened quality to be able to really and truly help sentient beings so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well, live long, be healthy, be well provided for, have good friends, find respect, live in places of peace and plenty, and most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for these good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. May they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural, sacred well-being totally beyond suffering and attain the great equanimity that's free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata Shame Shamawati Shamita Shatru Om Kurimam Kurimarajite Karota Kaorite Juwati Oloyani Bishudani Male Malapanaye Kukure Kaka Grase Grasana Omuki Paramuki Amuki Shamme Dawane Sawa Graha Bandanane Nigri Hitva Sawa Bhava Pravadina Vimukta Mara Pasha Savitva Buddha Mudra Anukatita Sava Mare Bhutsarita Parishude Biga Shantu Sava Mara Kamane. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our heads on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. In our first session, we had a kind of overview of this text. And then in the second session, the previous session, then we plunged into the first main teaching verse. So I did send out a structure for the whole text, a very complete analysis, verse by verse. And if you want to know where we are in those terms, then please look at it. I think in a spoken teaching, it makes for maybe unnecessary confusion. If we're always in subsection 3 of point A, of main point 2, and all of that, you get lost. But we are in the main body of the text, in the 7 Vajra points. 7 Vajra points. The first 3 go together, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, as the goal to be achieved, result, a goal, the end result. And then the last 4 points, Buddha nature, enlightenment, enlightened qualities, enlightened activity, as the cause for that result being achieved. So we're in the first chapter, Buddha, and in the first chapter, Buddha, the first big verse is the important thing. We've seen the way this section about Buddha is structured, is that we have the gist of the meaning of Buddha in that verse. And then the verse itself is explained. So there are verses about its meaning. And then at the end of the section, we'll get a summary combining meaning with the verse. That's the way this section is structured. We are mainly in the first verse, although in order to explain its words, we had to hop to the next verses which describe the meaning. But this verse, this first verse, is so full of more or less everything the whole text is about. All the 400 and more verses are about. It's very important. And I can't go through it quickly. I need to share at least a minimum so that I feel you've got some good grip on it. But I worked out if I do that at the current pace, then if we did the whole text, it would take us at least 12 years at this rate of 1 talk a week. At the rate we're going, we've got about 12 years worth. So I certainly won't be around for another 12 years. So I'm just explaining why we're spending a lot of time on this verse, because it's very important. And I'm glad it's not just me. At one point, I had to interpret for a Lama, Khenpo Labu, in Samiling. He did a month on this text. And so after the first 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions, everyone's wondering, not only are we ever going to finish the text, but are we ever going to finish the first Vajra point? Because it is so important, and you can't just go through the ideas. You can, but it's much more important that people get a feel for it. And then, so there's that. And then last week was very interesting because we had the talk. Then afterwards, as usual, we have the discussion, question and answers time. And in there, our friend Myron, Dr. Myron, he made a point. In fact, he was quoting Nagarjuna about beginnings, middle, and ends, and in fact, I was quite rude to him because I kept interrupting him and shutting him up, which isn't a very nice thing to do. I was being, how can you say, enthusiastic, but maybe I shouldn't have been, because when I was studying with Khenpo Sultim, he'd do that. He'd just stop you in mid-sentence and challenge, and because he could see where you were going. So anyway, I was quite rude to Myron, I think. So I wrote to him afterwards and apologized because I just didn't let him finish his point without interruption. But I've been thinking about it a lot this week, and in fact, it was a very good contribution because it's made me think a lot, and about one point in particular, which was in the introduction to this text, not a Sangha's own introduction, but the traditional Kaju introduction that I received from Khenpo Sultim, Trengel Rinpoche, and so on, many times, well, several times from each. So now we're going back 40, 45, 46, 46 years. First time I went word by word through this text and got the transmission. Many times since, so Khenpo Sultim would be quite lively. But in the introduction, something we went through quickly that now I must return to because of what happened in the questions and answers, the discussion, which is that this text belongs to the third turning of the Wheel of Dharma. We need to explore that first. I feel it's very, very important. So when we talk about the turnings of the Wheel of Dharma, there are various ways we can describe it. It's the 3 phases of the Buddha's teaching. What we're really looking at is the 3 phases of our own journey to enlightenment. Which is reflected in the way Buddha taught. So he taught first what needs to come first. He taught in the second phase what can follow on, but not for everybody, from the basic teachings. He taught the Bodhisattva teachings. And then in the third turning, he shows us what it's all about, which are these teachings we're studying about Buddha and about Buddha nature. We can study the 3 turnings of the Wheel of Dharma in terms of scripture. And many people do, and many people set very, very great store by scriptural research. Oh dear, is what I say. Oh dear, because scriptures, now I mustn't say something that's going to get me bad karma, but scriptures are what's left behind. I mean, what it immediately makes me think of is tracking animals, footprints. or sometimes droppings. I saw a documentary, guy who spent years, year after year, going to Tibet to get pictures of snow leopards. Years, sometimes a whole journey, doesn't see one. And so it's a documentary about his travels. But because it's been such a long quest for something rare, you see when in a cave he finds a leopard's footprint, he's like, wow, it's just a footprint. I mean, it's not a leopard. It's a hollow in mud. But it's like, gosh, it's so close. How close? How far between a footprint and a leopard? So if I think of Akon Rinpoche's life, my teacher that I witnessed so much of, I saw how he helped people, how he gave some such deep teachings, yogic teachings, nature of mind teachings. Others he gave teachings about various things we all need, about humility and love and compassion. If you look what's left now in literature about him, it's like the footprint compared to a real leopard. I know all the books that have been written based on his teaching. I know the people who made them. I know how they made them. I know the book that was produced examining about Rinpoche's life and the film. It doesn't even scratch the surface. Writings about what the Buddha taught didn't happen till centuries after and based on oral traditions, legends. So people who take, how can you say, scripture as the benchmark of truth, what happened, they're in a very poor position. Very poor position. Because when you meet real spiritual teachers and see how they teach all day long to so many people on so many depths, what is recorded as words is very subjective from the people who got them. They're words in the first place. They're teachings, often teachings given to a large number of public. So we can look at the three turnings in terms of scriptures and say, yes, these particular 15, 18 scriptures are where we find the third turning teachings. And I say rubbish. Throughout his life, 45 years of teaching, Buddha would teach people the true nature of their being, the true nature of everything, as soon as they were ready, probably every day. It says some people saw him and they were relatively enlightened on the spot. Relatively enlightened. They awoke irreversibly just by the Buddha's presence. And so on and so on. So the third turning of the wheel of Dharma is like the end of the story. But in order to get to the end of the story, steps 1 and steps 2 are vital because they get rid of, and this is the point, we'll come back to that when we go to the, excuse me, when we come to the verse later on today, the words. The first turning and the second turning are about getting rid of something. First turning, getting rid of ego and its consequences, karma. Ego leads to the mind poisons, leads to karma. First turning, we have to get rid of that. It's huge. Maybe you're all gone beyond ego already, but I doubt it. And so this delusion of self needs to go. We're talking about what happens after that's gone. Because while we're in a me, I mindset, you never get it. How can you? Your mind is full of me thoughts. If we meditate, and we look at our mind, it's so full of self-centered thought. So the first turning needs to get rid of that. and all of the desire and frustration and everything that goes with this delusion of a self, that needs to go. And then the second turning needs to get rid of all of our projections, our models, our, what is the word I'm looking for? Projections, models, paradigms, and so on, by which we evaluate all the time reality. And the duality, the dualistic thinking and the duality itself, the dualistic perception that's behind the whole way we describe everything to ourselves. We are coming at it from very fixed ideas, historically developed. And it's a prison. Our mind needs to be fresh and open, totally. So the second turning of the wheel of Dharma is to get rid of dualistic thinking and all of the projections that we have. That needs to go. So with this third turning, we're looking at what happens after that, when the mind is no longer cluttered up with dualistic thinking, no longer cluttered up with ego. Then there is where we're no longer dealing with what we need to get rid of, what's blocking the works, what's gumming up our mind. We're dealing with now Buddha can say, this is. And through dualistic thinking, we're not immediately going to interpret that in confusion. Buddha can point out what is, and we're not bringing our own rubbish to it. We're not bringing egotism to it. We can hear with ears that are wide open, a heart that's wide open. We can receive the Buddha's transmission of truth. The truth about everything, everyone. Buddha mind. So the reason I shut Myron up last week was because he was quoting Nagarjuna. And Nagarjuna is one of our greatest Buddhist masters. What he said was 100% true. But it's a teaching that belongs to the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. And it's a teaching about beginnings and ends, and how things don't have beginnings and ends, because basically they do not exist ultimately. Not that they don't exist, full stop, at all, but they do not exist in their own right ultimately. So because they don't have own ultimate existence, they don't have beginning and ends. What we have is an illusion of a beginning and a duration and an end. So the point is that if we bring the second turning teachings of Nagarjuna, which is about getting rid of illusions, it's about the nature of relative reality and how deluded it is and how it involves suffering and so on, all of that, if we bring that into the third turning teachings, it gets messy. We get mixed up. So the third turning is the most difficult. As I mentioned in the first talk, we're using ideas and concepts about something beyond concepts. We're talking in terms of our own experience we can share. Language is all about shared experience. I use words that make sense to you. They resonate in our mind. We're talking with concepts and words about something beyond concepts and words. So we're doing our best, and Buddha gives us wonderful teachings in this text. But we need to take time and be patient and study it just in its own terms. Not mixing it up with wonderful quotations from either the second turning or practice teachings like Dzogchen, Mahamudra, all of that will make us confused. We need to, in order to get this very wonderful teaching clear, we need to follow it in the traditional way it's presented. So I received it at least twice from Khenpo Sutim, at least twice from Trangul Rinpoche, if not 3 times, then also from Taisitupa, not so, and they all present it exactly the same. And it's mainly according to Jambon Control, the first's commentary. Then, as we go through the whole text, it becomes clear. And we are clear, and we have information from the same level of Dharma that goes together nicely. So anyway, that was about last week, and I'm very grateful to Myron for his comment, because it made me realize the importance of pointing out the 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma. First 2 turnings are no, not this, not that, that's illusion, that's suffering, and so on. That's dualistic. The 3rd turning is not about those. So we've got beginning, less, centerless, and end. And we're not talking in the Nagarjuna, Shunyata, voidness, emptiness terms about this relative world, not in terms of voidness teaching, Shunyata teachings, having beginnings and ends. There, Nagarjuna's pointing out our delusions about things having beginnings, middles, and ends. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the changeless Buddha mind. So, in order to introduce this, we have to go outside our detailed exploration of this voice to understand a basic teaching that runs through Mahayana, that runs through our Vajrayana practice, which is that there are 2 parallel realities happening all the time, every moment, right now. One is changing, one is changeless. In this text, we're looking at the changeless reality we call Buddha mind, either as a potential in us or when that potential is realized, Buddha, and Dharma and Sangha. But that is a changeless continuum that's there all the time. The continuum, the word for continuum in Sanskrit is Tantra. This is why this text is called Mahayana Uttara Tantra Shastra. It's a continuum. That's a changeless. It's impossible to get our head around that. It's always will be, always has been, is, doesn't change. Alongside that is an ever-changing reality. It changes many times in 1 second. It's like the frames of a movie. Each frame is a new picture. And that is our relative consciousness. It's the continuum of consciousness that will never stop until we're enlightened. We live, we die, all sorts of things happen. You go up, you go down. It never stops. The continuum of ever-changing consciousness. So what we're looking at here when we say beginningless, centerless, and endless is not at the beginninglessness and the centerlessness and the endlessness of things that happen in our relative changing stream of consciousness. That's what Nagarjuna looks at. They don't have beginnings, middles, and ends. We are talking about the changeless Buddha mind, the truth of mind. And there are very, very few examples, but we're saying that never had a beginning. that never will have an end. And because there's no beginning, no end, there can't be a halfway point or a center. We're talking about that. So let me give you an example to tell you about it. This just now in Northern Hemisphere, it's winter. It's got the beauty, the poetry of winter. We get these clear winter skies. This last week or so had some amazing, totally cloudless sky. Can you understand that? Does that make sense? A totally cloudless sky. So, what did you experience when I said it? That totally clear space. So if it's at night time, then you see these stars light years away. It's unobstructed, cloudless sky. And there's some nights when they say, you're going to get a meteor shower. I remember so many nights when I lived in Scotland. You think, well, great, I'm going to see shooting stars, and you go out, cloud. All you can see is cloud. But then when there's a clear sky, really clear, millions of stars, and it's endless how far you can see. But what did I say? I said a cloudless sky. And what did you experience? The clarity. You weren't really bothered about cloudless, were you? Or were you? What did Ken mean there weren't any clouds? If I say a cloudless sky, then you're aware it's a clear expanse, not one cloud there. But the clouds are secondary. So when we say, and that's what I was trying to bring out in last week's talk, it never began. And it's not something that's ongoing and will come to an end, Buddha mind. That is hard, if not impossible, for us to understand, because everything we ever experience has a beginning, an endurance, and an end. Did you ever come across something that didn't begin and had its life and ended? Everything does. So, in a way, those first lines, beginningless, centerless, and endless, and then perfect peace, a Buddha, and then self-realized, spontaneous. We're looking at what Buddha is not in order to experience in our imagination what it is. You say, there's no clouds, then you can experience in your imagination clear sky, unobstructed, nothing in the way. So we say, Buddha is without three things. Yeah, we can get there that way. But then if you really want to get this, then when you understand the Bodhisattva path and the 5 stages, and you see what gets removed at this stage and that stage, and then with each of the 10 Bodhisattva levels, what drops away, what becomes clearer, then you see this is the end of the process. It's the end. And so then it makes a lot of sense. And one of the qualities of Asanga's level of teaching that Asanga and Buddha Maitreya give us is this understanding of the path and a gradual shift from ignorance and huge suffering to more and more enlightenment, until that enlightenment is 100%, absolutely pure, and that is Buddha. So we can understand or appreciate its clarity by understanding what's gone. And this is wonderful because we can understand a bit what's gone because we can experience it. So when we look last week, we saw this first major verse about Buddha is showing us that Buddha represents the twofold benefit for ourselves, the ultimate benefit for ourselves, and the ultimate way of benefiting others. Already that's terrific. I mean, it could be that the ultimate way of benefiting everybody else would mean your sacrifice. Everyone would benefit, but you'd hurt, basically. Or it could be that the ultimate benefit for you would be at the expense of others. It's not like that. What we call Buddha, the changeless, natural, true state of mind, is the ultimate benefit for everyone and for ourselves. Woo! This is a reason to party. This is wonderful. It really is. So sometimes when we're starting on the Bodhisattva path, because we're hacking away at our habits and ego and self-centeredness, then it can feel like, we have to sacrifice something in order to help others. But when you practice the Bodhisattva path, it's never like that. Everything we do to become more there for others enhances us as a being, brings a deeper joy, brings more satisfaction, more wholeness, more energy, something beautiful inside you. Anyway, that's the Bodhisattva path. So we looked at Buddha, which is this verse and this chapter is about, represents the twofold benefit, self and others, oneself and others, and then each one of those is in 3 points, which we started last time. So the benefit for oneself is in 3 areas, and we're basically looking at the clarity that's there when the 3 levels of clouds are gone. The sky of pure being when 3 levels of obstruction are gone. The first level of obstruction is basically karma, let's call it that. It's karma which brings suffering, samsara, suffering. The reason we made the karma is because we have mind poisons. The reason we have mind poisons is that we have an ego delusion. That's a basic Buddhist teaching. So we see that at work. And that's why I say there's a meditator's way of approaching this text. There's a scholar's way. If you're a meditator and you do shamatha, mindfulness, and so on, I'm sure you've all seen your ego at work, your anger at work, your jealousy at work, your desire at work, all of those things. And your kind of dull stupidity, ignorance at work, when your mind, got nice words these days like brain fog and things like that, but we see it at work. And then with luck, as the years go by, we see it diminishing. We can imagine what it's like when it's gone. We can see how it made us make karma, and how we still sometimes would be inclined to punch somebody on the nose or say something harsh. But we don't. So now that how can you say, we get rid of it layer by layer. Takes an awful long time. even when we're a first level bodhisattva and free from the power of karma to make us reborn, the fallout from karma is still there. And it's still there, less and less, but it's still there, up to 7th bodhisattva level. Then there's just such fine traces left. The finest is called first thoughts that you can't work with. So we study all that in the Bodhisattva path. It's not today's teaching, but it's to show that a Buddha, it is all 100% totally forever gone. It's like the last clouds. The thick clouds have gone, the thinner clouds have gone. There's one or two brighter stars shining through. And then there's a few wisps of cloud. And then in the end you go, wow, a cloudless sky. Does that make sense? Or take another example, like water. When water is busy and troubled and muddy, and there's wind, so it's rough on the surface. It's all you see is, there's a great word in English, say troubled water. What do you see? Trouble. You see trouble. And then it settles, and the wind stops, and the surface is smooth, but it's still a bit muddy, but then with time, the mud settles. And then you see what's always been there, but you never saw before. There are grasses and plants and fishes and worms and little insects scooting across the top. Not only do you see everything that's deep in the water very clearly, but you see the nature of the water itself is clear. I mean, we know water's clear because we get lovely water through our taps. It's not so obvious if you live out in nature. If you're an animal, water is often muddy, dirty. So we know water's clear. But when the water in a lake settles, we don't only see everything that's in the lake, we see the nature of the water itself, and it reflects the sky. It's wonderful to look at water mindfully. And so now we're looking at ego and its repercussions, and the quality of ego and karma is that you make karma. You set it in motion. It's got a beginning. And then that karma lasts as long as it lasts. Maybe dictating lifetimes ahead because of what you did. Wonderful things like profound bodhisattva vow, deep loving wishes to help sentient beings will have repercussions in many future lives. Or we did something very evil, harmful, that can bring damage in many lives. So each karma has a beginning. It lasts as long as it lasts, and it comes to an end. If we look at Buddha Shakyamuni's life, he's still in between the ages of 35 and 80. He's still working out whatever karma is left. And some of it in the stories we see comes from before the 3 cosmic eons of his bodhisattva journey. So this power of what we call it, the veil, the blockage of karma, where each thing has its beginning, middle, and end, and there are hundreds, thousands of overlapping karmas that make you and me like we are now. It's all gone. And what's left now that this stream of consciousness is ended forever is only the changeless Buddha mind. And there's not even time there. So there's no beginning. Nothing changes. Time is determined by change, things that change. It never ends, it always was. So when we say beginningless, centerless, and endless, we're looking at no more veil or blockage of ego and karma. When we say at peace, perfectly at peace, then we understand the journey of peace in terms of the second veil, which last week I described as the cognitive obscuration. It's the conceptual mind, the thinking mind, the emotional mind. It's all of our changing stream of consciousness is mental activity. It's not just thoughts, not just the words, the ideas in the head. It's mental activity in consciousness, but especially duality, where there is, whether it's defined by oneself or not, self and other. The world is in two every moment. So because there's self and other, there's desire for other, there's anger at other, all sorts of things happen. That is very, very subtle. And getting rid of duality, dualistic thinking, but the dualistic experience takes so much meditation. We need to get to the end of the seventh bodhisattva level before the dualistic split ends. So, and even then, there's some more very fine work to do. We study that in the stages of the path, but the point here is that this more subtle level of blockage is gone. So this is why there is natural peace. So that's the second benefit for oneself. And the third benefit for oneself, which I described last time, but I did feel I needed to come back to try and make all this more real, is that when there is only Buddha mind left and the stream of consciousness has ended, then every quality is there naturally. All the Dharma is there naturally. There is no other, and no need for other in terms of teachers, lineage, teachings, advice, guidance. And right now we depend on that so much for our progress. So again, if we follow it through the stages of the path, how very dependent on the refuges and our teachers we are in the first two stages of the path. How from the third stage, level of insight, and through the bodhisattva levels, still we receive so much awakening from those more pure, more wise than we are, all the way up to, well, what we're talking about here, Buddha. When that work has become, you've learned until there's no more to learn. And everything is there, has always been there in Buddha mind. So when we go to the second turning of the wheel of Dharma and Nagarjuna, we are talking about nothingness, emptiness, voidness, shunyata. We're talking about what's wrong with all the illusions. And then we discover at the end, in the third turning, this Buddha mind has everything. It is not just the absence of illusion. Please, well, if you're taking notes, underline this bit or highlight it or burn it into your bones or something. What Buddha is not just the absence of illusion. That will be like a blank. Nothing. Buddha is the presence of all the qualities. So many of them. Naturally there, spontaneously there. And in particular, the quality of teaching. So then we come to the three qualities for others, benefit for others. And there we get, how can you say, the positive terms. It's like we've said, cloudless sky or pollution-free sky. And these days it's very real. Inland from here, about an hour and a half's drive away, there's one of France's main observatories. So not only are there no, it's a good place for no clouds, but there's no light pollution. So it's not just a cloudless sky, it's a lightless sky, if you know what I mean. We've not got cities and lamps, which make it very much harder to see. It's a clear sky. Clear sky. So when we talk about benefit for others, there we have more positive terms. We have three: wisdom, compassion, power. And generally when we think of Buddha, I think a lot of people think in terms of those three: benefit for others, because we take refuge in Buddha. That's what we want. It's like the candy store. You don't really care who runs it or what the shop looks like. It's the sweets that you're after. So what we're looking for is wisdom, compassion, and some power, some ability to help. They are the qualities of benefiting for others. So again, if we follow it through the stages of the path, we see how at the beginning, of course we can help people. Materially, we can help them with advice, comfort, and so on, from the big day one. But this gets better and better, purer and purer, more and more skillful. And then there comes a point when we can help people really deeply help themselves psychologically, through Dharma, through understanding of the mind, through meditation and so on. So when we see how that develops through the stages of the path, through the bodhisattva levels, then we understand how the wisdom grows and grows. Or is clearer and clearer would be a better way to say it. Till in the end, you just couldn't be wiser, because there is instant, total, perfect clarity of wisdom. And the same, we see how compassion grows, how the bodhisattvas can help a few people, then it's more like hundreds, and it's more like thousands. Even now in our world, we see bodhisattvas whose radiant Dharma activity helps hundreds of thousands. Look at somebody like Taisitupa, his life, such a positive benefit for tens, hundreds, thousands of people. That's amazing, isn't it? One person. Incredible. So many of us benefit from it. So when we study the path and the development of compassion as compassionate activity, not just a feeling of compassion, compassionate activity, effective, real compassion in action, then we're looking at Buddha, where that is the most wonderful, perfect, pure compassion ever. And then the third quality for others is power, a power to help. This is very realistic. Buddha's power to help is there all the time, but it can only work for those who are open to it. So we get examples like the sun later on in this text. With Buddha activity, we'll see how when the sun shines, Some flowers open, but not all of them. Some close. Nighttime flowers close. And so when the flower opens, then the warmth is absorbed. It's only an example. But if Buddha's power, when we say power, we mean power to help. If that could just help everyone, we wouldn't be here. We'd have been helped a long time ago. We'd have been beamed up, gone, dissolved. There wouldn't be suffering anymore. So obviously Buddhas and Bodhisattvas cannot just help. Well, it's not a mystery. You can see this in life all around you. You can imagine the sort of help people need, but they're not open to it. You know the sort of help you need. I know the sort of help I need. And I know I'm not 100% open to it. I'm still guarding a bit of territory. There's a bit of still ego. There's all these things going on. Sometimes when you're with very holy beings, you feel this. It's shame. You feel ashamed because you realize how small-minded, clinging on to things you are. And they've let go of so much. So we can see that our own ability to be helped depends on our own ability to open up, even though the help is there all the time. And if that's true for us, how much more true is it for so many other people who are not interested in any of this stuff? So the three qualities for others are wisdom. We need to know this, by the way. You need to memorize this. Wisdom, compassion, power. That's Buddha. That's what for us Buddha is. Wisdom. What color is wisdom? What shape is wisdom? Where is wisdom based? None. It doesn't. Wisdom has no shape, no color. No. What is wisdom when you think of clarity of mind? It is formless. It's formless. We're looking at the real Buddha here. Wisdom has no shape. I mean, it's not really a pink heart. Pink heart's got shape and color. Pink heart. But that's love. Sorry, that's love and compassion. But wisdom, what is it these days? A light bulb. That's isn't it? A light bulb flashing in the little icons. But real wisdom, universal Buddha wisdom, changed this wisdom. There's no color, no more of it here and less of it there, no location. Totally formless. And the same with loving compassion of the Buddha. Perfect compassion. No shape. What? That compassion and compassionate activity takes many forms, but in itself, it has no form. That power to help beings through teaching Dharma, showing the way, has no specific color, shape, location. So Buddha that we're looking at is nothing to do with Buddhas, beings in pure lands, beings emanated on earth, born in Lumbini and so on. Those are secondary echoes of what Buddha is, what we're looking at in this verse. These two areas of benefit for oneself. So there you need to go away and think for a long time. I'm still thinking after 46 years of this, and I'm still working on it. It's revealing itself more and more, partly because I'm thick, but other than that, it's a discovery that will grow and grow on the path. Those three qualities of freedom. So we give that a name. We call it Vimukti Kaya. Kaya, the embodiment of Vimukti. Vimukti means total freedom. Why is it the best fulfillment for ourselves? Because it is the most wonderful freedom. People value freedom. People resent restriction. The words in the texts, Buddhist texts, are bondage, chains, shackles, ropes. It's like being tied up, or sometimes the word prison. You're kept inside a small space. Freedom, vimuktikaya, total freedom. Buddha embodies our total freedom. So then, to understand freedom, we need to understand the prison. We need to understand the chains. We need to understand the limitations. And that's why we have those beginningless, centerless, endless, freedom from karma and the mind poisons, perfectly at peace, freedom from duality, dualistic thinking, and then totally, spontaneously awakened from itself, not awakened by somebody else, naturally self-awakened. So let's go and work through the book now. I hope, even though I've mainly repeated what I said last week, I hope today's explanations make it a bit more tangible. So now I need to bring up my text. Got it. Good. So verse 5. Now if you are following that structure diagram that I sent out, not done by me, done by somebody else, very nice job, there the verse numbering is not quite the same as our one. My verse numbering was based on Trungpa Rinpoche's explanation. But there can be slight variations. So verse 5, Buddhahood is endowed with twofold value. It's uncreate, spontaneous, and not to be realized through external causes. That's the first three. That's the three values for oneself. Uncreated is not a creation. A spontaneous, it's not dualistic, and not realized through externals, somebody else. And it possesses knowledge, compassion, love, and ability. So you see, if you scroll down that page, it totally fulfills one's own potential, totally fulfills one's longing to be of use to others. And then on what in, I think the copy I sent out, although I'm not sure anymore, but this page numbers, I've got the one that's got number 31 at the top, but it's a page with 6 bullet points, 3 and 3, not to be a creation of karma. So in this section of the analysis of the Buddha verse, we're looking at first quality for oneself, not to be a creation of karma. We just leave it at that. Not to be conceptual, so that's the meaning of peace. Not to depend on externals, external teachings, external teachers. We've done that. From these will automatically emerge the qualities of perfect, omniscient wisdom. Not just wisdom, but the best of the best. It's perfect and it knows everything. and limitless impartial compassion, the very best compassion, and true powers, strengths, and abilities. They benefit others. So there's some text describing that. And then on page 32, it starts with, there's no starting point for Buddha. It never arose, centerless, endless. We've done that. But in contrast to this, everything in our stream of consciousness did have a beginning, an existence, and an end. Like you. This life, you had a beginning. Mum and Dad. And this life started. And then the different realities caused by your past karma in this life, they have beginnings. They lasted so long. And either they ended or they're still going on in terms of all of life's situations. So this is beyond that. We've done that. It's the changeless nature. So when that is developed in the commentary and in the teachings, it says it's freedom from karma, but then karma brings the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Then the other four sufferings of meeting what you don't want, not meeting what you do want, not being able to get what you need, and not being able to keep what you have, and so on. Those are the classic sufferings of existence. So this is nirvana. All that's gone. Now, how incredible is that? It's easy to say the words. It's nirvana. All the suffering's gone. But if you are an awakened bodhisattva with a heart, moved by the suffering we see all around us, moved by the suffering inside yourself because of the own conflicts and limits of your mind, whew, gone forever. And instead there is the perfect, pure mind of Buddha. And then if we carry on, we get to peace, to Buddhahood, are the words describing freedom from the cognitive obscuration. Talked a bit about that last time and again today. When that is developed in the commentary, we say freedom from duality. That's where the commentary and our teachers introduce the word triplicity. And when we get to Vajrayana practice, triplicity becomes a more used term. So duality is subject-object. This side, that side. You feel like this side, and what you experience is that side. Even when we meditate and observe our own mind, there's a kind of something out there being observed, and you, the intelligence, observing it. And then when meditation gets tricky, complicated, then sometimes the observer is trying to look at the observer, and so on and so on. But that's duality, this side, that side, inside, outside, me, you, self, other, perceiving mind, perceived reality, all of that two-sidedness. But then it's not just that, there's interaction. So when out there is donuts, and in here is hunger and love of donuts, then it doesn't just stay like that. You actually go and buy one, and you eat it, and there is temporary satisfaction until the next donut adventure. So there's subject-object interaction. And to deviate a little bit, but for those of you, who are doing deeper meditation, like Mahamudra, you'll understand the power of interaction. Things come up as objects, you're there as you, and not getting involved, not interacting. So triplicity is the point here. There's not just duality. When there's duality enacted, worked on, it becomes triplicity. Gone forever. Gone forever. So now this is the point where the word Buddha itself is described. And this is very useful. In Sanskrit, it's one sound, Bud. We don't necessarily need the ha. Bud. Bud is the etymological root. And a problem for translators. Even back then, a problem for Tibetan translators, let alone going from then Tibetan into English. Bud in Sanskrit means Bud. That's what words do in their own language. They resonate with sometimes multiple meanings. So Bud in Sanskrit has two main meanings. The first one is awake. Awake as opposed to sleep. So Bud. So if we say Buddha, somebody who's Buddhid, somebody who is got the Bud, they've Buddhid, they've woken up from the sleep of ignorance. Waking up. You are in the dream. It seems so real. And then you wake up, you find who you really are. Sometimes it's a great relief to wake up. Sometimes things are getting pretty dicey in the dream, and then you wake up. And it's your boring old bedroom, and how wonderful that is. But you become who you really are. Not what you were in the dream. It's quantum. It's quantum. And so then that's one meaning, waking up. A shift of state. In this case, waking from the sleep of delusion, ignorance in all of its levels. That's what Bud means. But then the other word for Bud, meaning of Bud in Sanskrit, is fully blossomed like a flower. And so it's when all the qualities are there. I had a rose year. This year I planted 6 rose bushes. All the previous roses had died. And so they're new, and it's been fun watching the buds, and then the buds open. And then you get that time when it's just perfect before it starts rotting. So it's so beautiful. And the smell, some of them smell more than others, but it's like everything is there. It doesn't get better. That's the apogee. That's the perfection of it. It's like when you take the souffle out the oven. It's perfectly souffled. And then it collapses. This word Bud means like at its splendor, at its perfection. So Bud means not just not just the awakening, the awakened state, but the absolutely fully complete with all its qualities, state or person. That's the two meanings of Bud. One sound, Bud in Sanskrit. In Tibetan, it had to become 2 syllables. Sanje. Sanje is the word for Buddha. So Sang means awakened from the sleep of ignorance, or means just awakened. And then J means fully developed, fully expanded. And so when we say Buddha, we're really saying the awakened, fully perfected one. When we talk about the state of being, we say the state of total awakened, perfect qualities. So that's the word Buddha, which is usually explained Sanskrit, Tibetan. So then, because it means awakened and like fully blossomed, then having explained the word Buddha, Sonje, then this third quality for oneself is that it comes from inside, self-awakened, self-blossomed into all the qualities. And again, if we understand the stages of the path, we can see this amazing breakthrough at first bodhisattva level, when ego and the power of karma is overcome, and there's a kind of a flip. These days we talk about default setting, default value. You default to Buddha mind rather than ego mind. Until that point, you are somebody getting more and more awakened, having in practice, you're having more and more glimpses, longer glimpses, more sustained periods of awakened mind. But then there comes the first bodhisattva level, the flip, where that is your default. Now you are Buddha, with the fallout from your past consciousness still present, but that's not you anymore. You're Buddha. Naturally, you are this light, this clarity, this clear sky, with still the history to work with. So, and then from then on, more and more, until now at the 100%, all the work finished stage, everything is there perfectly all the time, because nothing is blocking it anymore. So Buddha is replete by itself, in itself. If we go to page 36, then we come to another important point. We still have time. If you can see, it's on my page with number 36 on the top. It says, second paragraph, which once purified and made manifest. Okay, if you're following the text. And here we start the benefit for others. But in order to explain it, those words, which once purified and made manifest, which once purified, and not just a bit, but totally purified and totally made manifest. Purified means awakened from the sleep of ignorance. Made manifest means all of the qualities are there, Buddha. So in order to explain that, then we need to know what are called the two sorts of purity. Now this is a big deal in this text. We'll come back to it in different ways again and again throughout the text. So, deep breath, waken up, important point, coffee, tea. Two sorts of purity. And now this explains a lot. There is innate purity, innate, and freedom from surface impurity. Earlier on I mentioned these two parallel streams which are always there every moment until we start getting more and more enlightened. The changeless nature, Buddha mind, the ever-changing nature, stream of consciousness. Buddha mind is innately pure. It is purity. When you are Buddha, the idea of purity isn't even there, because there's nothing that's impure. The word purity means not impure. When you become Buddha, as they say, it's hard for some people to understand, or even the idea of suffering is unknown. Purity. So innate purity is the changeless Buddha mind, always there. So that's why the teachings and teachers say, you are Buddha. They're talking about that stream, which we always are, every moment. But then when we look at themselves and say, now, has this teacher gone completely crazy? He's looking at me and saying, you're Buddha. Me? Buddha? No way. No way. Because even though this changeless nature that's always there is Buddha, it is covered up. And we can't recognize it, we can't use it. It is useless. So you can't do what a Buddha does, even though you are intrinsically, innately Buddha. You're a useless Buddha because it's all blocked up, covered up. So we get these examples, they'll come later in the 4th chapter, of gold or a jewel inside the rock, inside ore. It's there, but you can't trade the rock. It's just rock as far as anyone can see. And it won't be of use, it won't be precious, it won't do what gold can do until you take away the rock. And then to take it away, we take away first hammer and chisel, and then something finer, and then finer and finer abrasives. Then we need to wash it, polish it, sometimes melt it, put it with other things to take away fine impurities. So the process of refining gold is often used as an example, and it's used to describe what happens in the bodhisattva levels. But the point is, the gold is there from the beginning, but it's not useful as gold as long as it's covered up. And then there are other examples like sesame oil. It's already there in the seeds, but seeds are hard and they don't do what oil does. Lubricate. You cook things in oil, fry things. You can't fry things in the seeds. So it needs to be processed, but the oil's there. Or butter in milk, there's lots of examples. So although we are innately Buddha, we are useless Buddhas, we are inoperative Buddhas, for as long as those 3 obscurations, ego and karma, dualistic mind, dependence on other, as long as they're there, then we are not what we mean by the word Buddha, which is a fully enlightened person with wisdom, compassion, and power. So you are Buddha, but you aren't a liberated Buddha. We are potential Buddhas. So freedom from surface impurity means freedom from the main obscurations: ego, mind poisons, dualistic thinking, primal ignorance. Ignorance means we ignore our Buddha mind. Our ignorance covers up awareness of our Buddha mind. Not belief in it, awareness of it, immediate presence in the moment. That's ignorance, it's blocked off. So those 3 veils are called surface impurity, and although they're huge and present and active all the time in us, seen from the big picture, they will go. So it's a kind of Once they're gone, there is nothing left but Buddha. It's irreversible. So it's called freedom from surface impurity. And so that's why Taisutipa often he says, we are all Buddha all the time by our true nature. But he says, I am, but then in terms of being a utterly pure, fully awakened, totally perfect Buddha who can help other people, then we're so far from that, yet we're working on it. So the two sorts of purity. Here, when in this verse, we're looking at ultimate Buddha, so both forms of purity are there. There's the innate purity that was always there, and there's purity as freedom from transient impurities. I use the word transient, it slipped my mind. People have found fancier terms than that. There is a technical term, accidental, in philosophy, and which means things which don't belong to the nature of something, but which affect it temporarily. And it's gone. I've got a memory blank. There's another word. But anyway, passing surface impurities. So when it says, which once purified and made manifest, so we're talking about the whole journey of the path, where we purify layer by layer, step by step. It says, just as the Buddhas of the past first set their hearts on enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, and in order to achieve that, practice the path stage by stage. So then, this is what we're looking at. And through that practice of the path, there is realization. And I've got about 2 minutes left, so I want to introduce an idea that we'll pick up next time. Okay, so the freedom from passing impurities, transient impurities over our Buddha mind, something to think about. We've seen beginningless, centerless, endless. Not a creation. No causes and conditions coming together, making karma, making realities. But now, so causes and results. But now we need to understand a different sort of result, which has its causes, but not in terms of cause and result. Clear as mud, isn't it? So it's called a result by removal. Imagine you've got a room, or let's say a public room, a public space, full of furniture. It's one of these rooms you can use for lots of things. It can be a classroom, it's got desks, it's got chairs, it's got all sorts of things hanging on the wall, charts, blackboards, projectors. The room's busy, it's full of stuff. And then you take everything away because there's going to be a dance class in there. So you need space. Okay, if you do that, you take everything away, that's the cause for having space. It's called a result by removal. If you don't take away the desks, the chairs, and everything that's in the room, you won't have an open space. If you don't do the cause, you don't have the open space. But did the cause, the work you did, carrying desks and chairs, did that make the space? What makes space? So this is a wonderful thing to think about. Space doesn't have causes and conditions like everything else. Space is where all the causes and conditions make life, make flowers, make earths, make planets, make big bangs, make people. Causes and conditions. All happens in space, but nothing makes space. And the space only becomes knowable when we take things away from it that have been blocking it. But we don't make space. In English, we say, make space, make some space. But you didn't actually make space like you can make an apple pie. Or you can make a baby or whatever. You don't make space. So it's called a result by removal. You won't become the Buddha that you've always been unless you remove what's blocking it, desire, the mind poisons, ego delusion, duality, basic ignorance. It's a profound point, so let's leave today's talk there with you've got something to think about over Christmas. May whatever virtue was created by this session contribute to the state of omniscience being attained. By the main enemy, mind's defilements being completely defeated. Through that, may each and every sentient being become freed from the ocean of existence, troubled by its waves of rebirth, aging, sickness, and death. May this precious bodhicitta arise in those in whom it's not arisen, and in those in whom it has arisen, may its development know no setbacks. May it increase ever more and more. Through this virtue, may we quickly achieve Mahamudra and establish every single sentient being in that same accomplishment. Thank you. Over to you now, if you've got something you'd like to contribute or questions.
Ken, I was thinking earlier, one of the points you made, this is a thought that came to mind. I don't know if it's helpful or not, but you were talking about still water and reflecting the sky. And I just had this kind of vision in my mind of very still water, but also very turbulent water, like the surface of the sea. That you'd have to, if you look really, really closely, you do get glimpses still of the sunlight, but it's very transient. So you have to look more closely. I don't know if that's of any use to anybody, but it's just something that came to mind.
It's good.
And the things you said about cloudless sky for me had a very strong kind of experiential resonance, I suppose. So thank you for that.
No, it's good. It's good that we think about these things because we can hear the words and we process the idea and it makes sense. But once you start chewing on it and thinking about it, like you were doing with the ocean and so on, then the power inside the word starts to be released and we learn something. So thank you.
Ken, it's Isabel.
Yes, hello Isabel.
Yes, hi. I was just thinking, actually, that was really helpful to me because I have this observer within that observes every reaction and every thought or response I'm doing. But that observer means that I'm still dualistic. And if I wasn't still dualistic, I wouldn't have need for the observer to keep doing all the work. Mm-hmm. So that's really been given me another thought process to go through. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. Breaking it down, seeing how it works. I think what I slipped in for a little bit today, the triplicity, I think that's a lot of the area of our very hands-on Dharma work just now for all of us. It's, I mean, you can't help but be an intelligent mind. You know, we're observers, we're aware, more or less, but you're aware all the time, otherwise you're deeply asleep. Can't help that there's things to be aware of, but it's the interaction that we're sorting out. What things trigger in this aware being and our influence on things, what goes on automatically, what's more planned, our bigger maneuvers in life and in relation to ourselves. It's a complicated business. It's a complicated business. When people become, I suppose in English the word you would use is self-conscious. That can be uncomfortable, and we need to be very kind, healthy, loving towards the mind, towards ourselves, because otherwise it could be unhealthy.
Ken?
Yeah.
I would like to add something to that, because if you observe yourself and are aware of certain things going on, then it's very difficult not to be judgmental about it, like this is good, this is bad, this is ego, no. So that could also make things even more complicated, because it's not going to help you.
Yeah, that's why we need, that's what I mean, doing it in the right way. We need a loving, kind, healthy way of dealing with our mind. And I think in that area of ideas, there is a huge difference between judgment and judgmental. Those two words. I don't know if judgment is the best word, but judgment's a good thing. We use it all the time. Judgment keeps us safe. It keeps us sane. If you're cooking food, it gives you nice food, because you know not too much of this, just enough of that. Don't cook it too much. Judgment, you drive a car, keeps you safe, takes you to the right place. Judgment means wisdom, and it means discerning one thing from another. This is the better option, this is the not so good option. So judgment, and then when we look in the Buddha's teaching on what's called mindfulness, then it means while we're aware, we have the Buddha's teaching about what we're aware of in the moment, the Buddha's guidance. So we know that, for instance, anger or jealousy or whatever it is, resent and things, we know that basically they're, whatever you want to call them, not helpful, not skillful, bad, if you want very simple labels. And other things are helpful, they're good, they're positive, constructive, whatever way we see it. And so that's helpful. It's like knowing food, knowing cooking skills, knowing driving skills. It's how, in the light of that wisdom, that good judgment, how we handle our mind, how we become relaxed about the darker parts of ourselves and so on, how we know some things take time, how we know that there are ways and means that can help us. We need to find what they are. all of that. And that's so different from this word judgmental, which means that there's a kind of hopelessness, an inflexibility about it, being judgmental. And so in the Bodhisattva teachings, especially when we apply them in Vajrayana, we do like Vajrasattva practice, we know that what's there has causes in the past, but whoever we were in the past is not who we are now. We have a very healthy feeling about who we are now, whatever was there in the past. So there's a whole disentangling that can take place. It's very, very good.
Can I have a question for clarification? Mingyur teaches the essence of Buddha as being the recognition of wisdom, compassion, and then he uses the word loving kindness. And you use the word power, and I'm just wondering whether, in essence, they're one of the same.
Yeah, traditionally what I'm presenting is what my teachers told me, and what's come down, I think probably since this text was written and these teachings were given, that the three qualities are those: wisdom, compassion, power. And when we explore them, as we will do, maybe next week we come to it, we see that it says the power is a spontaneous and natural consequence of the wisdom and compassion. It's not something other. Buddha mind is natural wisdom, let's say, clarity. That clarity, because it's clear about everything and the whole of existence, is naturally compassionate. You can't separate the clarity. And so that's all the time how Buddha mind is. The power to help, there we get, can only happen in terms of relative reality. The power to help this one, that one, at this time, at that time. It's not like a power that's there all the time. And to make this very real, if we think of living masters, I think of Akon Rinpoche all the time, basically through his own mastery, serenity, wisdom, all those things, people will come as that person with that question, and he can help them. It's very tailor-made, happens in the moment, and it's finished. So the power is not another thing in its own right. It's the natural relative level outflow of the wisdom and compassion. Does that help, Vicky, for that?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's one of the same. Like what you're talking about is this natural outflow would necessarily for me come from a feeling of love. And yeah, I don't know. I find it super confusing when different words are being used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
But does that power, does it have the essence of love?
Has to, because it's the natural outflow of, whatever word you use. In Tibetan, it's tse. Tse is, it's not the word for loving kindness, it's not the word for compassion. Loving kindness is jampa, compassion is nyingje in Tibetan. This is tse. And tse is like putting loving kindness and compassion together. It's like saying loving compassion. You've probably seen a few lamas in Tibetan history. They're called Chentse. Chentse. Chen means wisdom. Tse is the loving kindness. It's these first two of the qualities. So It is, and but then the point I have to make here is that here we're studying traditionally Buddha and nature text in the way it's always been taught, or the way it was taught to me when I was told this is the way it's always been taught. Right? We're talking about the wisdom and the loving compassion of Buddha mind. At first, that won't be there to be aware of. We can be aware of our love, our own compassion, whatever it is, our own wisdom, but this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the wisdom of changeless Buddha mind that's innate, it's in the background all the time, but to dig deep enough to get the first experience of Buddha wisdom, of Buddha love, takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And yet I guess they are echoes of,
Yeah.
The relative like compassion and love and kindness we have, or it must be echoes of our Buddha nature.
Absolutely. And when we come to the Buddha nature chapter 4, it's in 3 parts. 3 reasons we all have Buddha nature, 10 key points about Buddha nature, 9 examples. In the 10 key points about Buddha nature is exactly what you just said, that if this wasn't the innate truth of us, then on a relative level, there couldn't be the love, the compassion, the relative wisdom that we have.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Yeah, it makes sense. It resonates with what I've heard Mingyur Rinpoche talking about, how even our mind poisons are echoes of our Buddha nature. Yeah, and compassion towards self, at least. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ken. Something you said at the very beginning struck me. You said 2 realities all the time. One is ever changing and one is changeless, which summarizes all the rest that we're talking about, really. That we are already Buddha, but and the changing part, we're full of all these obstacles and, as you put it, furniture in the classroom. And it struck me that the importance of having, or the great value of having a spiritual friend of one sort or another who can not only perhaps remind you and advise you about what's the best furniture for you to remove, but also to keep reminding you that we are already Buddha, which is something maybe we gets lost in all the work of trying to remove the furniture. I mean, I sent you an email where I talked about my friend, that whenever I talk about becoming Buddha, she admonishes me and says, "No becoming, you already are." But she also advises me to what furniture to take out. So it's great to have somebody, whether they're a lama or somebody else. That's what struck me.
Yeah, that's the job of a teacher. I mean, if it was a room full of furniture, that was a sort of off-the-cuff example, but nevertheless, somebody coming in when it's full of desk, chairs, clutter, and you said, hold a dance class in here, no way. But it's absolutely 100% perfect space for a dance class if you take all the furniture away. You need to know that from the start. And why bother? Why carry all that stuff outside? What's the point? Is it worth it? Is the end result, which is a result by removal, worth it? And there's lots of implications and repercussions for this. So many people are looking for a quick fix, rather than carrying out each desk and chair. Like, can we blow them all up, or can we spray them all with some fantastic acid or something so we can get on with the dancing? They're looking for rapid technique, spiritual tricks, for quick enlightenment, and that can become very dodgy process. I mean, there are easier and harder ways to carry the desks out, and you don't want to carry the desks in such a way that you've got such backache you can't dance afterwards. So there are faster and shorter ways, but the basic work that we're talking about here, getting rid of ego, getting rid of anger, getting rid of desire, getting rid of dualistic perception, dualistic thinking. I mean, they're there, and there are the methods, but there's no shortcut, really. There's no magic.
Ken, I was thinking, interesting, you used that word magic at the end. Thinking about this thing of, as well as the wisdom and compassion, the power aspect, and the things you said earlier about that power can help if the recipient is open and ready for that. But that's quite a strong one. It's something I've seen a lot in schools and working with young people, especially, well, even adults as well. That I wonder sometimes if there's a tendency for people to think of the idea of Buddha as some kind of magical savior who can move mountains literally in that sort of way, rather than actually the more realistic thing of that it's really working with the mind, and that if your mind's too blocked up, there's no way you're going to get through. You just have to be patient and wait until there's a gap in the clouds. And that's certainly what I've experienced on a relative level with working with people and myself.
This is in the commentary to this text we're studying, when it talks about the 7 Vajra abodes. And then it says abode number 1 is about Buddha, the teacher. So here it's not talking about Shakyamuni Buddha, the person as a teacher, but this mind which is free from the 3 veils and has the 3 qualities. That's where all the learning comes from. I lost the train of thought that I started with there, but a teacher is only a teacher when somebody learns. Otherwise, they're a talker. You can talk and talk and talk, but it's only when somebody learns that they become a teacher, because they've taught. So the whole way we're looking at this is about, it's not just learning, it's like you were saying, I'm coming back to your first point. How can you make somebody more able to learn in the first place? How more available to receive something that somebody else has to give? How can we make our own minds? And in the Kagyu tradition, then the big deal is devotion. And that's really interesting, but we don't have time today. But I was talking with some friends the other day and about devotion. And when we think of devotional people, I don't know what comes up in your mind. I mean, countries like India, you meet lots of devotional people where they're very devoted, and in Tibet too. They can sing in devotion, and they can worship in images, and in temples are really holy places. You're going in there, you're going into a sacred space with sacred images, and you feel this devotion. It's quite, how can you say, it's on the emotional level of things. So some people I know who are in the Kagyu tradition, they say, I'm not a devotional person because they're not an emotional person. And that's interesting, because actually a much deeper sort of devotion comes from, can you say, cool-headedness. It is respect. You realize how far ahead from you somebody else is. Sometimes I shudder in shame when I look back in my early years, how I was with people who were so wise and so good, and you just think of them the same as you. And you only realize 40 years later, gosh, they'd done this work that I've been doing. You know, it's taken me 40 years, 50 years. They were already there. They were talking from another place. Yeah, sorry.
And if I could offer something.
Yes.
Hearing, as I'm listening carefully today through your teachings and some of the comments, one of the things that's coming to me is the importance of the unsplitting of the heart center and the mind, the heart and mind, and the belly center, you could say, where power often resides, that these have to become reunited in ourselves in this process.
Yeah. And in Vajrayana, that is a very important stage of the work. We have what we call outer, inner, secret, most secret levels of work in Vajrayana. And the second one, the secret level, is all about complete integration, flow, fluidity, harmony, unity of all of these centers that normally we separate.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, well, what's the next step? Wish you all Merry Christmas, I suppose. We have that coming up before next week when we can wish each other Happy New Year. So I hope things go very well, whatever you're doing over the coming days. And yeah, we do meet up again next week.
And happy solstice.
Oh yeah, today's the solstice, which is, I should have said it at the beginning, it is the perfect yogic, alchemical day for these teachings. When we look in the yoga teachings and so on, there are the solstice, 2 solstice days in the year, something very special opens up inside us. And so this is the perfect day for these teachings. It really is. Good. Go well.
Thanks,
Oh,
Ken.
very much, Ken.
Thank you.
Christmas.
Thank you, Ken.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ken.
Everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you,
Thank
Ken.
you.